Carlos Alcaraz might have a problem, but it isn't because he's playing badly or because his results during the Asian swing weren't what we expected. It all comes down to one thing that nobody's talking about. Coming into the Asian swing, Alcaraz was looking to overturn a 3,200-point deficit to overtake Novak Djokovic and finish the year as #1, but he hasn't quite gotten the results that he would have loved, and according to him, he has missed a lot of opportunities. But why's that? Let's find out what happened in China. After impressive victories against Yannick Hoffmann, Lorenzo Musetti, and Casper Ruud in Beijing, Alcaraz was beaten in the semifinal by Sinner for the second time this year. Sinner beat Alcaraz by mostly taking time away from him, taking the ball early, hitting deep, and basically rushing Alcaraz into making poor shots. One thing that really surprised me was that Alcaraz only won 28% of points on his second serve, the second worst mark of his career. But Sinner was able to maintain his impressive return of serves. In fact, only Novak Djokovic has returned a higher percentage of second serves than Sinner this year. That's probably one part of Sinner's game that doesn't get talked about too often. I feel like we should make a video of Jannik Sinner because that dude is just playing out of his mind. He's at his peak physically and mentally, and just playing some tennis that's really exciting to watch. Well, after a close first set that ended with Sinner winning the tiebreak, he obliterated Alcaraz in the second set. 7-6, 6-1 your final score, with Sinner moving ahead 4-3 in their head-to-head. After the match, Alcaraz admitted that he really finds it difficult to play against Sinner. Really, that's not the worst thing in the world because every player has someone that they struggle against, but then what went wrong in Shanghai? Alcaraz faced Grégoire Barrère in his first match and was relatively untroubled. He then met Dan Evans in the next round, and although he was only able to convert 3 of his 15 breakpoint opportunities, Alcaraz was still able to win in straight sets 7-6, 6-4. Alcaraz left Evans frustrated with his depth and accuracy throughout the match. After rallying from a breakdown to clinch the first set, he then committed only 2 unforced errors in the second set. Alcaraz also won 67% of net points as he improved his record against Evans to 4-0. But it was a different story when Alcaraz faced former world number 3 Grigor Dimitrov in the round of 16. Dimitrov entered the match having lost all 3 matches that he had played against Alcaraz, and many fans expected nothing to change. Even though Grigor's recent performances had been exceptional, many thought that he'd fall short against Carlitos, but the Bulgarian flipped the switch. Dimitrov timed the ball cleanly off both wings while he used his backhand drop shot to great effect to tuck up Alcaraz. He then raced to a 5-3 lead in the first set, but ended up being broken while serving for the set before going on to lose 5-7, but that did little to deter Dimitrov because he was back in the second set, breaking Alcaraz twice to win 6-2. The third set was a bit of cat and mouse, but Dimitrov came out on top 6-4. What particularly stood out for me was Dimitrov's service game. 10 aces, and he won 61% of his second serve points. Dimitrov served out wide on the ad and deuce most of the time, and this was a terrific strategy that paid off, especially on the deuce. But not just that, he also did well to dish out low slices and tactical backhand drop shots. This helped him to draw out errors from Carlitos, disrupting his contact points before finishing him off with those aggressive forehands reminiscent of his 2017 season. Dimitrov hit 29 winners en route to his biggest win of the year. Honestly, I feel like a first ATP title win since 2017 for Dimitrov is like the last piece of the puzzle. He's been playing exceptional tennis of late, and it does still seem like he has that top 10 potential still in him. Just take a look at this stat from Tennis Insights. I'm particularly excited with the performances of some players in recent weeks. Seb Korda is back. Hubert Hurkacz has shown that he's a top 10, maybe even top 5 player with the win in Shanghai. Andrei Rublev has been consistent and continues to improve. Jannik Sinner is in good form. The list goes on and on. Unfortunately, Holger Rune, Casper Ruud, and Tsitsipas need to put in more work if they're going to see success. But you get the feeling that as long as these players stay healthy, there's going to be a lot of great competition on the tour in 2024. But back to Alcaraz, let's address a few minor issues. There have been some question marks on Alcaraz maintaining his focus throughout matches. It's almost like there's a pattern where Alcaraz plays a close first set and then starts the second set terribly. We've seen this in his recent losses to Daniil Medvedev, Sinner, and Dimitrov. Somehow, Alcaraz isn't making the most out of his opportunities in the moment. For instance, in the Sinner match, he converted only 2 out of 9 break points. Against Medvedev, it was 1 out of 9. Fair enough, these are some of the toughest players out there, and it might be a bit pointless to be critical of Alcaraz here. But maybe, just maybe, he sometimes loses a bit of focus during matches and struggles to maintain that same intensity throughout. Now, I think these can be fixed with a few minor tweaks here and there, but let's talk about another issue with Carlos. It's one thing for the weight of expectations from everyone to weigh you down, but it's quite another thing when you do it yourself. He has been quite vocal about his goal to finish the year as #1.
This is gonna be tougher if I want to be #1. I have a few tournaments ahead, so I'll try to do my best. I'll try to, win them to have a chance to end the year as a #1.
Now, is that a good thing? I'm not totally sure because I feel like the pressure could be getting to him a little bit, and that could backfire. Novak currently reigns supreme at the top of the ranking, and Alcaraz has passed up a lot of opportunities to close the gap between him and Djokovic. Alcaraz initially confirmed that he was going to play in Basel in a bid to catch up with Novak, but his body couldn't take it anymore, and he's now withdrawn from the tournament due to muscle fatigue and foot problems. He was probably stretched too thin in China. Tell me, what do you think of Alcaraz's scheduling at this time of the year? Meanwhile, Djokovic skipped the entire Asian swing and will be fresh for the battles in Paris and Turin. Carlos's recent losses tell the rest of the top players out there that he's not unbeatable. Now being arguably the best player since the Big Three, Alcaraz has certainly been a bit of a reference point for other top players on the tour. But once they figure him out, they'll definitely stand a higher chance of beating him. So where am I going with this? Grigor Dimitrov said he knew what to do to beat Alcaraz, and it's pretty obvious that Alcaraz doesn't like being on the back foot. So if you have the game to keep piling up the pressure on him, there's a good chance that you'd have some success. His drop shots might be a little too predictable these days as well. As more players begin to find ways to beat Alcaraz, he'll need to show his ability to evolve like the Big Three and find endless ways to beat players. Compared to last year, Alcaraz seems to be struggling a little bit on hard courts, and his hopes of finishing the year as #1 have taken a huge blow, seeing that he only came away with 270 points out of a possible 1,500 from the Asian swing. But the truth is that for Alcaraz, the expectations are so high that even when he does play great tennis but falls a bit short, many fans are quick to jump to conclusions. Now, I personally think that Alcaraz is the victim of his own high expectations. You see, at 20 years old, he's already won 2 Grand Slam titles, 4 Masters 1000s, and has 12 titles to his name at this point in his career. He ended last year as world #1, spent many weeks at the top, and this year defeated Nole in 5 sets at Wimbledon, while also entering pretty much every tournament he played as the frontrunner. When you consider these achievements, it's understandable that he would have some kind of hangover or loss of form. Alcaraz won the majority of the tournaments he played up until Wimbledon. He won 6 out of the 10 tournaments he played in and had a great first half of the season. But Carlitos hasn't won any titles since Wimbledon. That's why it looks like he's struggling, or that his results have been a little bit disappointing. Do you see Alcaraz getting his 7th title of the year in the coming weeks? Also, we need to put things in perspective here because Alcaraz isn't going to beat everyone. In fact, when he places top players like Novak Djokovic, Daniil Medvedev, Jannik Sinner, maybe Tommy Paul on hard courts, and a couple of other top players, he has a good chance of not winning. I wouldn't say that the fear factor has dampened much, so what has happened to Alcaraz exactly? As such, I'd love to see Alcaraz's recent performances as just another learning curve on his path to greatness. Alcaraz doesn't need to really do anything drastic or radical to improve. He just needs to figure out how to keep his focus and intensity to help him take advantage of more opportunities. I know it's a lot more difficult than it sounds, but these are just some of the things that make a difference at the end of the day. It's been a great year for Alcaraz, and compared to other players around his age who seem to struggle more, Carlitos has proven time after time that he's a fast learner, so these things shouldn't be a problem for him. Nothing changes for Carlitos. Ask these tennis legends, they'll tell you what they think of Carlos Alcaraz.